All right, so uh, a handful of poisonous berries, right? You wouldn't think something so small could cause so much chaos.
Yeah, you're telling me.
But that's all it took for Katniss and Peeta to completely turn the tables in the 74th Hunger Games. I mean, their act of defiance, it wasn't just about surviving. It was like this seismic shock that reverberated throughout Panem.
I think it's really interesting how that single act, this one incredibly tense moment with those berries really becomes this focal point, this pressure point, in the whole story we're about to dive into.
Exactly. It's like the domino that sets everything else in motion. And speaking of dominoes, let's talk about the source material we're unpacking today. We're zeroing in on Catching Fire, the second book in Suzanne Collins' incredible Hunger Games trilogy.
Oh, yeah. Catching Fire just takes everything to another level.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, for everyone joining us today, our goal is to really dig deep into what happens immediately after Katniss and Peeta pull off this unbelievable victory.
Right. Because the games are over, but the story is far from finished.
Totally. And we want to understand all the complex forces at play,
Yep.
like how they deal with coming home. What's the capital's reaction? And what about those first whispers of rebellion starting to emerge in the districts? And of course, there's Katniss herself, right? We'll be taking a close look at her internal struggles as she confronts this whole new, terrifying reality she's suddenly thrust into.
There's just so much going on under the surface.
Exactly. And that's why we're here, to guide you through this intricate web of events and, pull out the insights that really make you think. So let's jump right in. We start right where the last book left off. Katniss and Peeta are back in District 12. They should be celebrating, right? Victor's Parade, the whole bit.
Yeah, you'd think.
But it's not that simple, is it? Katniss is immediately battling this huge internal conflict.
It's like she's won the games but lost something else, something important.
Exactly. She's living in this Victor's village now, surrounded by comfort and luxury she's never known. It's a world away from the scene where she grew up, where survival was a daily struggle.
And where she felt, comfortable.
Yeah, totally. But this newfound wealth, all this attention and fame, it doesn't bring her peace. Not at all. If anything, she feels even more like an outsider.
You see that in so many little ways, right?
You do. She constantly finds herself drawn back to the simplicity, the familiarity of her old life.
Even if it was hard, it was what she knew.
Yeah. And it's not just the environment, It's like she doesn't even belong in her own skin anymore. She even connects with Prim's cat, Buttercup, who also seems totally out of sorts in this new environment. Remember, Buttercup is constantly trying to escape back to the seam.
That cat really disliked the Victor's village. I mean, come on, what cat doesn't like being campered?
It's bizarre, right? But I think that's part of what Collins is getting at. It's about identity, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just rip people away from their roots and expect them to flourish in some completely alien environment.
No. And this struggle with identity, with authenticity, it really permeates Katniss's entire relationship with Peeta at this point.
That relationship is complicated.
It is. I mean, think back to the games. They presented this passionate, star-crossed lovers narrative, but it was all a performance.
It was a survival tactic. They needed to win over sponsors, manipulate the audience.
Right. But now back in the real world, away from the cameras, they're struggling to even have a normal conversation.
Yeah. There's this awkwardness, a formality, a constant sense that they're still playing roles, that they can't let their guard down.
And then you have President Snow's visit. Talk about raising the stakes. What did you think when you read that scene?
Oh man, that visit is so chilling, so unsettling. Snow comes across all smiles and charm, but there's this underlying menace, a thinly veiled threat directed at Gale.
That moment where Snow talks about how much he admires Katniss's hunting skills. You know he's talking about Gale.
Totally. He's reminding Katniss that he knows about their connection, and he's not afraid to use it as leverage.
Exactly. Snow's message is crystal clear. Katniss has to convince everyone, especially the districts, that she's madly in love with Peeta. And she has to do it during the upcoming victory tour.
Not just on the tour, in every public appearance from now on. It's a life sentence.
Right. And it's not just about entertainment. It's about control. It's about crushing any hope of rebellion that their berry stunt might have sparked.
And I always found Snow's comment about the capital's fragility really interesting. When Katniss says the capital must be very fragile if a handful of berries could cause such a reaction.
Yeah, and Snow says, it is fragile, but not in the way that you suppose. He's not talking about physical fragility. It's about control, about the perception of absolute power.
He knows that a few berries can't physically topple the capital, but they can plant a seed of doubt. They can make people question the narrative.
So Katniss is in this impossible situation. She's dealing with her own internal turmoil, this forced and awkward relationship with Peeta, and now this immense pressure from Snow to keep up the charade, all while knowing that the people she loves are in danger.
Yeah, the stakes are incredibly high. It's about survival, but it's also about identity, about resisting this overwhelming force that's trying to dictate every aspect of her life.
And then the victory tour begins. It should be this triumphant celebration, right? But it's actually a brutal reminder of the capital's power and the simmering anger in the districts.
That tour really underscores the deep divisions in Panem.
It does. Think about Katniss's visit to the Hob, the black market in District 12.
A place where she felt more comfortable than the victor's village.
I know, right? It's crazy. That's how messed up things are. The Hob, this illegal underground space, is where Katniss feels a sense of belonging. It's tied to her past, to her skills as a hunter, to the way she had to break the law just to survive.
And it immediately highlights the hypocrisy of the capital, right?
Right.
They impose these laws that force people into these desperate situations and then punish them for trying to find a way to live.
Yeah, it's all about power and control. And what about those peacekeepers in the Hob? Cray and Darius. It's interesting, right? They're not just faceless villains.
No, you get these glimpses of their personalities. Cray is world-weary, almost resigned. Darius is surprisingly jovial.
That's like they're stuck in this system, too.
Yeah. It makes you realize that the capital's control isn't just about brute force. It's about creating this web of complicity where even those who might question the system are trapped within it.
Even on the Capitol train, there's this sense of being watched, of being monitored. Remember Haymitch's warnings to Katniss about how they can't even talk freely, about how they have to play their roles perfectly?
Oh, yeah. Haymitch is constantly reminding them that every word, every gesture could have consequences.
And the preparations for the tour, the way they're pampered and dressed up, it's so artificial, so disconnected from the reality of District 12.
It highlights the capital's decadence, their obsession with appearances, and their complete disregard for the suffering in the districts.
I mean, think about the hot water, the mountains of food, the ridiculously elaborate clothing. It's all designed to showcase the capital's wealth and power and to remind everyone of the vast gulf that separates them from the districts.
That contrast really hits home when they arrive in District 11, Rue's district.
Oh, man. District 11 is so heavy. It's supposed to be this showcase for the capital's agricultural success, but you can see the poverty, the despair. It's right there on the surface.
The capital tries to project this image of happy, obedient districts, but District 11 exposes the lie.
Totally. And meeting Ruth's family, I mean, that scene just breaks your heart. They're a living reminder of the real cost of the games, of the lives that are stolen and the families that are shattered.
Yeah, those individual stories are so important. They remind us that the games aren't just some abstract spectacle. They have real, devastating consequences for real people.
Absolutely. And Katniss's speech at the Justice Building, that unscripted moment where she speaks directly to Ruth's family, it's so powerful. She connects Ruth's death to Prim, to her own sister.
It's a moment of genuine human connection, a refusal to let the capital control the narrative of grief and remembrance.
Right. It's her saying, these are real people with real lives, and their deaths matter. And that simple act of laying down the flowers at the memorial, it's so small, but so significant. It's a public act of defiance, a way of honoring Rue and Thresh on her own terms, not the capital's.
It's about reclaiming agency, even in the face of this overwhelming power structure, and the capital's reaction is swift and brutal, as you'd expect.
Oh, yeah. They execute the old man who whistled Rue's Mockingjay tune right there in the square in front of everyone.
They send a message. Don't even think about stepping out of line.
It's terrifying how quickly they resort to violence.
Yeah.
And it's not just District 11. You see that simmering anger in other districts, too, like 8, 4, and 3.
Yeah. Those crowds, their reactions are so unpredictable. It's a mix of excitement, adulation, and barely suppressed rage.
When they chant Katniss's name, it doesn't feel celebratory. It feels dangerous. Like they're looking to her as a symbol of defiance, of potential rebellion.
It's like a pot is about to boil over.
And what's fueling that unrest, in part, is this unintended symbol, the Mockingjay.
Right. What started as a personal memento for Katniss becomes this powerful representation of resistance.
It's crazy, right? People in the Capitol are even wearing Mockingjay pins and getting Mockingjay tattoos. They have no idea what it really means to the districts, but to Snow, it's like a slap in the face.
It's like this unintended mockery of the Capitol's authority. They tried to eradicate the jabberjays, the birds that inspired the mockingjay, but they couldn't. And now this symbol of their failure is everywhere, even in the heart of the capital.
Talk about irony.
And it's not just a symbol, it's also about communication, right? The Mockingjay's song, it's a way of spreading information, of connecting people beyond the capital's control.
And back in District 12, Katniss's conversations with Gale reveal this growing divide between them.
Yeah, their perspectives on the capital and on rebellion are starting to diverge.
Gale is furious. He's seen the brutality firsthand. He wants to fight back, to overthrow the capital.
He sees the bigger picture, the systemic oppression.
But Katniss is still focused on survival, on protecting her family. She's not ready for a full-scale rebellion. She knows how dangerous that would be.
And then there's that encounter with Twill and Bonnie, the refugees from District 8.
Oh, man. Their story is so important it confirms that the rebellion isn't just some abstract idea. It's happening.
They talk about the uprising in District 8, the bombing of the textile factory, their escape disguised as peacekeepers. It's a real, tangible example of resistance.
And their belief that District 13 still exists, that it wasn't completely destroyed, that's a huge revelation.
It introduces this possibility of a larger, organized resistance movement, something that could challenge the capital's power.
And that image of the Mockingjay on the cracker they share, it becomes this symbol of hope, of survival against all odds.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always a flicker of resistance, a belief in a better future.
And the capital's response to all of this.
More control, more oppression.
Enter Romulus Thread, the new head peacekeeper for District 12.
He's a whole different level of cruel.
Seriously, he's brutal, he's ruthless, and he's clearly there to make a statement.
That public whipping of Gale for poaching, that was a message for everyone.
It was. I mean, Gale has been poaching for years. Everyone knows it. It was necessary for survival.
Yeah.
But Thread uses it as an excuse to make an example of him.
It's about reminding everyone who's in charge, about crushing any sign of defiance.
And then comes the announcement of the 75th Hunger Games.
Right.
The tension in District 12 is already unbearable, right? They've got peacekeepers everywhere. They're building those horrific punishment devices in the square.
It's like this constant state of fear and intimidation.
Totally. And then Snow appears on the screen, all smiles and fake concern, to announce the third Quarter Quell.
And right from the start, you know something's different, something's wrong.
Oh, yeah. He talks about the history of the Quarter Quells, the special twists that make them even more brutal than the regular games, and he keeps emphasizing how this 75th Games, is going to be truly unique.
You get this sense of dread, this anticipation of something awful.
And then he drops the bombshell. The tributes for this quell, they're going to be reaped from the existing pool of victors.
It's a gut punch.
For Katniss and Peeta, who thought they were safe, it's a death sentence. They're going back into the arena.
And that's what makes this quell so twisted, so brilliant in a horrible way. It's not just about killing more kids. It's about crushing hope. It's about taking the victors, the symbols of survival and defiance, and turning them into pawns in this sick game.
It's like Snow saying, no one is safe. Even those who have won are still under my control.
And it sets up this incredible emotional conflict, right? Former allies, friends, even lovers are now being forced to fight each other to the death.
So Katniss, understandably, has a complete breakdown. The thought of going back into that arena after everything she's been through is just unbearable. But Peeta, bless his heart, he steps up. He offers her his support, his partnership.
He's unwavering, he knows they're in this together, and he's not going to let her face it alone.
And Haymitch, despite his cynicism, he rallies too. He knows what they're up against, and he's determined to give them the best possible chance of survival.
They become this strange, dysfunctional family, united against a common enemy.
And then it's back to the Capitol. The prep teams, the interviews, all that artificial fanfare.
Yeah.
It's just a cruel mockery of their situation.
It's like the Capitol wants to pretend that this isn't a death sentence, that it's just another exciting spectacle.
But everyone knows the truth. And Cinna, oh, Cinna. His act of defiance, creating that wedding dress for Katniss, it's so powerful, so heartbreaking.
It's about beauty, it's about hope, it's about a refusal to let the Capitol completely extinguish the human spirit.
It is. And then, just before Katniss is about to enter the arena, they beat Cinna right in front of her.
It's a brutal reminder of who's in control, a punishment for daring to challenge the Capitol's narrative.
And the arena itself is unlike anything they've seen before. This beautiful, watery landscape that turns out to be incredibly dangerous and deceptive.
The games are evolving, becoming even more unpredictable, even more deadly.
So we've covered a lot of ground. The unconvincing victory tour, the growing unrest in the districts, the brutal crackdown in District 12, the shocking Quarter Quell announcement, and now the start of the new games, with all its twists and turns.
Katniss is caught in this web of manipulation, forced to confront these impossible choices, and surrounded by people who are both allies and potential enemies.
It's a powder keg. The question is, what's going to ignite it? Will it be the rebellion that's slowly brewing in the districts? Or will the capital crack down even harder, crushing any hope of resistance?
And what role will Katniss play in all of this? She's a symbol of hope, but she's also a target. Her actions, Peeta's revelations about the pregnancy, the way they navigate this new arena, it's all going to have huge consequences for the future of Panem.
So we leave you with this question. What do you think is going to happen next? What will be the spark that ignites the firestorm?